My name is Kevin. I'm the executive director of Meet Ministries, and I think I lost my slides here, so we'll try it again. Make sure we have the connection. Somebody had it up there for a second. There we go. Okay. So I run a youth innovation center. We're based out of Boise, Idaho, just outside of a town called Nampa. And our purpose is to strengthen the role and influence of the global church. And so we launched an innovation center, a ministry innovation center, with the aim of solving the most pressing challenges facing the global church. And so on Saturday I'm hosting a session on innovation. We'll be talking about that. I actually think I have the last session of the weekend, so I don't know how many will still be here for that, but that'll be a little more hands-on workshop style. But basically, most of my career has been in enterprise architecture and systems engineering, and I've had a chance to work with some amazing people that are they're industry leaders in their field. And so I've left my 21-year career in IT, and so now I'm doing this full time. And so we launched the Innovation Center in December. We kicked off 2 pilot projects in February. And so this session I was going to talk a little bit about the work that some of the kids are doing and kind of get you thinking about the way, from a missional perspective, how the things that all of you guys create with games are kind of being used in a different kind of purpose. I'm not a game developer. I do play games. I enjoy playing games. My kids are probably a little overly fanatical, but I'm a big believer in games on purpose, and that's a primary theme of what we try to incorporate in our Innovation Learning Center. And so, anyway, so this session is on games, avatars of Jesus, sharing the gospel in a digital world. And so this title is catchy, but there's a lot of deep significance to what we're trying to represent in this workshop title. That's not the presentation title. And so, but I think, it's the latter part that really brings us all together here at this conference, frankly. At least that's why I'm here. I'm not here to learn about games. I can go to Cgdc for that. Or I can do it online. I'm here because there's a common theme that I think unites all of us, which is really kind of describing our core purpose, which is Jesus. And so I think, for those of you that are gifted in digital art, you're looking at game theory and how to design and create these compelling experiences through virtual encounters. That's awesome. I think for someone like me, I've been raised in a pastor's home. My dad's he's been in ministry for 45 years now. He's still preaching. My brother's a pastor in Auburn, Washington, and at one point I was studying for the ministry. But anyway, I've kind of been, I've grown up in the culture of pastoral ministry, and I have a lot of deep connections with pastors all over the country. And so I think I have kind of I don't know if it's really different. I just think I have maybe a unique perspective from the laity perspective, from the people that are part of the body of Christ. They're not pastors, but how do you connect people that are considered full-time ministry in a traditional pastoral role with the body of the church who show up on Sundays and maybe Wednesday nights or Bible studies? How do you connect those two groups together to create sustainable change, spiritual transformation things that come out of those encounters? That's kind of what I'm doing. I'm in full-time ministry, but I'm not a pastor. So I hope that makes sense in the way I'm describing it. But I do think that really there's kind of this common theme about, at least from my perspective, why we're here, which is how do we, as followers of Jesus, engage a world who fundamentally rejects Jesus? How do we do that? I think all of you have been talking about, I'm hearing conversations, this is my second time coming to this conference, but I hear lots of dialogue about, story and the art and creating these compelling encounters and things like that. So I think that's awesome. But I do think that we share in understanding what that challenge means to us. How do we engage others in a world that rejects who Jesus is? They don't want anything to do with it. And I think that's kind of the core purpose of what this presentation is about. And then I'm also going to show you how I'm taking the approach in trying to address that. And so out of our Innovation Center, we have roughly 50 kids, and we're building 100 cities of the Bible in the game of Minecraft for the purpose of virtual first-person exploration in the biblical narrative. And so anyway, that's kind of the essence of what we're going to talk about today. So let me ask you a question. What do you think, I don't know why that's dropping out on me here. Let me try going direct here. Give me just a second. I'm going to bypass this other sheet.
He's the one who's more
I'll just bypass it. Oh. I can't because I got demos on here, so. Now. Is it the, no, I have a video. Last ones. So tell me, what do you think are the top 3 challenges that keep your pastor awake at night? Just throw out some things that you think are in the top 3. Yes.
Actually getting people to attend. Actually getting
Okay.
people to just come.
Attendance. Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
Finances.
Okay. So not enough?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Too much money, man. Keeps it up.
Too much. Well, I was just thinking debt or versus, just keeping the lights on, like new building projects or whatever. Yeah.
They care what people think about them.
Okay. Can you elaborate on that?
How are people going to respond to a sermon, or how they prioritize things in the church? Are they going to change the color of the carpet? Is the music too loud?
Yeah.
Are people going to disagree openly with the message or whatnot? Just how are people going to perceive them?
Yeah. No, that's okay. Makes sense. Well, I've spent probably the last decade talking with literally hundreds of pastors around the country. Educators, Christian educators, I should say. and just general faith leaders. And so I've come up with 7 things that seem like they were pretty consistent across different, faith traditions, and so I wanted to just kind of show you those. So one of them is isolated from meaningful influence in society. Fragmented. We're talking about the church. This is their feedback about how they perceive, the core challenges. So the church being fragmented in the way that discipleship takes place from a programmatic perspective. I think, I'm not sure if this is the right way to phrase it, limited and high quality programming. So we're talking about not necessarily the tools or technologies, it's more just the, maybe the operational, the day-to-day things are pretty archaic in terms of, keeping the church thriving and moving forward and dealing with trends and then of course the tools, right? Dealing with archaic tools, things that are pretty limited, not a lot of digitization. Starved to strong lay leadership is another one. But that was actually one of the more common ones. It's just, which I think kind of goes, whoever said the getting people to attend church, I think it's more even beyond that, getting them to serve. And ironically, it's the bigger churches that kind of express the concerns around lay leadership. This other one is just the ability to respond in a meaningful way to culture shifts. And I actually think that this conference is an example of that. There aren't a lot of pastors at this conference, which I've always thought interesting. It's a Christian game developers conference, but I see them as stakeholders in a lot of the things that a lot of you are trying to do for a livelihood. Anyway, that's just my own personal opinion. But and then the last one is and this is by far the number one point of feedback is the relevance to the next generation. So millennials is roughly, you'll have different opinions on this, but it's roughly from 1980, if you've been born from 1980 to 2000, that essentially represents the millennials. It's the largest generation in human history. And so I think there's a lot of different dynamics that go on here. I've taken their input and condensed it down to 3 key areas: superficial faith, cultural insignificance, and low engagement. Now, superficial faith, that's referring to, we're talking about the creeds. Do people understand what they believe and why they believe it? Well, not really. I teach classes a lot, both adults and youth, and it's fascinating to see how little, from a Christian education perspective, there just isn't a lot of depth there. A lot of concepts that are just basic theological concepts, how we understand our journey in Christ, that are missing. And then the cultural insignificance is really more around, I think we are seeing kind of over the last 15, 20 years, there is kind of a trend in the role of the church not really being part of family heritage. It's not something that we are intimately involved in from a relational standpoint. And I think it's just part of that separation. Everything is kind of, we got time to go, let's go to church and we'll go. But it's not intimately woven into family culture as much as it used to be. And then the last one is, really talking about kind of the faith. It's getting beyond the Sunday morning checklist. Check it off the list, showed up at church, I got other things to do. So anyway, that's kind of the 3. And so it's my view that we need to reframe, and I think this conference is doing that. This group is trying to reframe how we engage the world in the story of Jesus. But I think it's more than just the world, it's also the church. And I mean, how many of you have encountered maybe families that they don't like games? They think games they don't want anything to do with them. My kid is not playing Minecraft. It's a waste of their time. And so for me, I encounter parents a lot who feel that way. And it's kind of been interesting to kind of bring them along, with the Innovation Center, because it's designed for kids. It's a youth innovation center. But yeah, trying to get them to think differently about games as a tool or an agent that moves them towards purposeful faith encounters. And so trying to get people to rethink that is really interesting, at least from my experience. I don't know if that's been the same for you, but and certainly the things that were discussed in the last session, I think are really touching on those areas. So here's kind of where I can't solve world hunger, but for my role individually as an ambassador of Christ and someone who really likes games, here's where I'm targeting everything that I do. Our Innovation Center, we don't do anything unless it touches either of these two areas, okay? And so the reason why I'm going through this, because I think it's important for those of you that are true game designers, which I'm not, to see the way that someone like me, who really is kind of a hack, but we are actually using the things that you guys are creating to achieve missional outcomes. And so embracing the call is the way that I describe faith engagement. Okay? Equipping the church, that's faith leadership. So those are the two things. Okay? So if they fit into those two categories, awesome. We will look at it. We're probably going to take it on as a project. But everything that we do it has to be directly tied to the core mission of the church with a capital C. And so we see our ability to have an impact in these two areas. So there's lots of other things, and the 7 challenge areas, we can't address all those, but this is something where we think we can have very intentional, interactions in the way that we create value and drive sustainable change, and so that's how we're approaching it. So when we talk about faith leadership, faith engagement, what does that look like? Anybody know what this picture is? Raise your hand if you know what kind of tree this is. You do? They don't say it. Well, yeah, it's a plant, but what kind of tree? Don't tell me. If you raise your hand if you know what it is, but don't say it. You know. God, I know you know. I think you know because you have these. Where you're from. Anybody else? You think you know? Try.
I believe I know.
Go for it.
Is it an olive tree
Close?
or an avocado?
No.
All right, those are my two guesses.
Citrus?
Is he right? What did you say? Oh, I think you said orange tree. It's orange tree. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's an orange tree. Okay, so faith engagement, faith leadership, how do we know what it looks like? Do we know it when we see it? Right, all those questions. Okay, if we're bearing fruit, yes, we do know what faith engagement looks like. But we may not always know how to define it really, because we don't necessarily talk about that in verbal conversations that we have with each other within the church. But I think it's a really important thing for us to keep in the forefront of our minds as we're looking at creating games and designing awesome encounters with cool, fun play experiences. But as long as we don't lose sight of our core purpose, which is to accelerate the Great Commission. Right? That is the collective mission of the church, is the Great Commission. Okay, so see, I'm trying to remember. What was the speaker's first name last time? Thomas, yes. He touched on some of these things. He may not have said it this way, but the hearing and seeing and doing. I spent a lot of time. So my background has been in healthcare, enterprise healthcare. One of the things we were looking at was here was the VP of our physician program strategies came to me and says, Kevin, how do we get kids who have chronic illness to take better care of their health? How do you get someone to take better care of themselves? They have diabetes, obesity, sucks taking your blood sugar every single day. Just the whole, they get made fun of, it's just, their life sucks, okay? And so for hospitals that are trying to help these kids, have a healthy life and, live longer. Heart disease is huge among kids with chronic illness, with those two areas. And so one of the things that I had proposed was gamifying the patient experience. So imagine, okay, yeah, we can't make pricking your finger go away, but if you can earn points. So anyway, we were pursuing that, had some interesting feedback, and so we were working with. And the idea wasn't to turn healthcare into fun. What we were trying to do was create a less burdensome process for kids, so that it sucks, but hey, this can actually help you get better. You'll be healthier, you'll live longer, you'll have more fun, and you can win some cool prizes along the way. So we actually had buy-in, and I ended up quitting my job. So, but I think it kind of ties in with this whole scenario of connecting what we hear with what we see and what we do. Now, I think we need to take it just one step further. There's something that's missing, and it's the context of the story. Okay? Because there's games that they do all this. They connect what we hear and see and do. Awesome. But the purpose isn't really, it doesn't dive deep. It stays at that superficial level. And I believe that the gospel drives it down deep. That's where we get true faith engagement. Are you guys following what I'm saying? So, this is kind of the way that I think about all these things. And so I wanted to kind of share that with you, so that as we get to the project and kind of talk about how we're using Minecraft, you'll have the context of what's brought us to that point. Because to me, that's the how, it's not the why. So I'm trying to start with the why to lead you into that. Okay. Obvious signs. I truly am convinced that games and immersive platforms are a vehicle for the church to promote the gospel, to truly be a mission field that has never been tapped into yet. I kind of view it as a fourth world. We talk about the third world. I talk about it as the fourth world. Because the church doesn't really exist in the digital frontier. But all of you, I think you guys have been trying to figure this out and work towards that. It's not collective. The church leaders don't know that, hey, there's this whole world of 1.5 billion people that play games, and there's no presence, really. No offense if you're part of the groups that have online presence with churches. But I'm talking generally speaking. There really isn't any meaningful presence or influence of the global church in games. And so I think that, man, this group, this conference could be, and I think it is sort of, but it needs to be more of a catalyst in pushing the church to kind of, get their heads up, look at the big picture here, because there is a big picture. And so, anyway, here's just a few statistics here. This thing will come up. Come on now. This thing isn't. That again. Okay, so these are actually, they've already changed. This is from last fall. I didn't have time to pull all the statistics, but we basically have, I'm trying to connect my clicker here. Anyway, let's see if I can do that. Yeah, that's weird. I don't know if there's some kind of interference going on here. Anyway, yeah, so the 271 hours, this one here, this is talking about, so this is in the United States, right? Gameplay in the United States from 2013. So it's estimated roughly, 270 million hours a day collectively. So everybody that plays games in America, it adds up to 271 million hours a day. Okay. So does that make sense? The 58% population, I think, has already gone up. It's in the 60s. And some of you may have, more updated research than I do. But the 1.2 billion gamers globally, I think, is already approaching 1.5 billion, which is half of the entire population with internet access. So it's 2.5 billion people that have connectivity to the internet, which is a whole other conversation around marketability, mobile strategies and all the things that you guys are trying to develop for your business models and things like that. But I think here's the point of this slide. It's where people are spending their most valuable assets, time and money, is entertainment. It's games. Now games is beyond any other form, right? Movies, books, any other form of entertainment, vacations, nothing comes close to gameplay. So, for me, man, that is a mission field ready to be broken open. And so, I think it's pretty cool to think about the potential for the impact of the church entering this as a mission field. So, and just to compare, like I said, the stats don't really. The point is that you have this. It's not a balanced. You have heavy game use down here. You have very light spiritual interest. People aren't. They just don't. They're not tithing. They're not attending church. I found some group that claims that 154,000 people leave the church in America every week. And I don't know really how they're basing that on, because a lot of churches don't take attendance, by the way. And so that's part of the, if some of you have ever seen statistics about 40% attendance, part of that is because the data that they base that on has been, it's been missing like 80%, because a lot of churches, denominations don't do that. And so now it's kind of a trend where they're saying, hey, we got to figure out how many people are actually showing up. And so then you have the question, well, how many times do they have to show up each week, each month, before it qualifies as them attending church? So you have all these, kind of nuances in the way that analytics come out. But I just wanted to show you the point of it is that, church attendance down, that's nothing new. I actually don't think it's really been dramatically in decline. I think it's always been that way. But that's human nature. Why do we want to be pure? That's not our nature. If it was, then we wouldn't need Jesus in the first place. So anyway, we're kind of getting close here now to talk about the project. But before we do that, I wanted to pose the question: what do you think missional means? What does that? What comes to your mind when I ask that question? Anybody? Any thoughts? Yeah.
Making disciples.
Making disciples. Okay. Yeah.
Reaching out to people who wouldn't otherwise be served.
Okay. So sort of like an evangelistic.
Bringing the message to the world.
Okay. Yeah.
Living like Christ-like in every way.
Okay. No, that's good. I think all those are part of it. The formal definition is the sending of God. And this again ties back to Matthew 28. And then, I think it's pretty awesome that, Jesus was willing to commission his closest friends, his disciples, right? He called his disciples friends. And so that's a pretty awesome commissioning right there. So, but I do think that, as long as we're kind of in the mindset of being missional, I think the next question is, how are we being missional? In what ways are we being missional? And I think it's sort of a rhetorical question for those of you trying to figure out, because I think you're asking these questions as you're working on your project. You're trying to figure out, where does this game experience fit in the missional pendulum? Is it kind of on the extreme side, or maybe the more vague side, where it's very metaphoric, doesn't have direct, it's more implied, but it's sort of vague, as opposed to blatant. Yeah, it's the story of Joseph in Egypt. And okay, so these are just kind of some probing questions, and I think the missional GPA. I think it's important for us to always keep these questions in the forefront as we're looking at how we go about being missional with game design, art, story writing, all the things that we do on a day-to-day basis. And so, how do we kind of move out of, the tactical, what am I trying to say? I think sometimes we start with a solution, try to find a fix for it. Does that make sense? Now, I've worked with a lot of systems engineers over my career, and frankly, I think the industry, the technical industry, I'm talking about the career path of systems engineering, network engineering, software engineering, that whole group that has certifications and all those tracks. I think the whole industry teaches, it basically raises up a professional industry that thinks solution first, why second. Doesn't start with why first, solution second. Now, I've had to do a mind shift in my career, but that didn't happen until probably 8 years ago. And it was actually my move into enterprise architecture that got me to kind of retrain myself in the way that I was approaching problems. But my point is that I think it's spiritually the same way. Is that as game designers or artists or the products that you guys are trying to create, make sure you're not starting with a solution trying to find an audience to it. I think when you start with the why, then the solutions they'll figure themselves out because you guys are good at what you do. That's my view of it. So, what if? Take some immersive games, tie it to the story of Jesus, right? This is all stuff you guys know. It's what you've been doing. I found this passage. I just really stood out to me. I don't know if anybody's ever seen this, but I must proclaim the good news of the kingdom of God, for that is what I was sent to do. Wow, that's awesome. So Jesus was a storyteller. And so I think we are called to do the same. Here's I think for those of you that have any kind of participation in the church, this is a really important slide that I have found useful in persuading faith leaders and pastors specifically to get them to think differently about games, especially people who are resistant to games culturally. They haven't ever seen an example where games has been used purposefully for the kingdom. So I don't want to get into it, but somehow I've made connections into the education side of the world. I guess it's kind of interesting that healthcare has a huge education component, and the stuff that I was doing, I was talking about the gamified patient engagement stuff, huge education component for that. So that kind of started it. But my point is that the mass adoption by learning institutions, what they call quest-based learning. How many of you ever heard of that? Quest-based learning. So they're using games in schools, mostly middle school groups, where they're using games to teach curriculum. Okay, so biology, chemistry, math. Believe it or not, they're using Minecraft for all those 3 subjects. It's kind of weird, but how do you teach biology in Minecraft? And so one of the teachers that I met, he's created an entire world of cells. They're like, if I'm Steve, he's 6 foot tall in the game, and I'm walking up, and there's this huge, red blood cell. And so my job in the game is to identify the cells as I'm going through, and then I have to, put my entry in the log, put my name, and then the teacher basically checks that to see, okay, does he understand the material? Did he complete the competency level? Did he, whatever the challenges are in the game. So that's an example of how they're using Minecraft. Another one, Second Life is another one. WoW is, there's some that are using, I haven't really seen any compelling examples. That's mostly for like team collaboration and anyway, but it's interesting to see how schools are now starting. And so what's happening though is that these researchers are finding students that are getting B's and C's are now 98% of the class, and it's consistent. They truly are seeing, long-term change in the way that these kids learn. So memory retention understanding, comprehension, all the things that they get scored on for standardized testing, if there's any teachers in here. And so, it started to occur to me, wow, a lot of what the church does is instruction, it's education, it's audible storytelling. And so why not take the work that's already been done, it's just a different context. Same basic tactics, but it's a different context. Now we don't measure, well now, Johnny, he's not really demonstrating his faith at the level that he needs to, but so we're not applying standardized metrics to our faith. But I think going back to the orange tree, I think there is a way to start to instill a faith for life culture. That's what I call it. And that's what we're trying to do with our innovation center, is instilling a faith for life culture. So I think there's definitely evidence. And, quest-based learning is kind of the tactical approach that we're taking. And we're basically just, adopting the research and the studies and the same, mechanics that are used in schools with stories of the Bible. Bible quizzing is another one, and so that's kind of what we're doing. So let me get this thing to, I'm going to show you an example. I have all kinds of Bluetooth things over here. I'm going to show you no, it's all right. Okay, so this is a middle school teacher. I think it's 5th grade. This is humanities class, and so he's, basically created a historical world in Minecraft. And so this is his promo video that he did. Hopefully it will. Let's play it. I'll lose my connection. Still good. Now think Bible.
Can you full screen it?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so this teacher had never played Minecraft before. He spent roughly 700 hours building this world during the summer. And like I said, his entire class someone said that soundtrack was from Narnia or something like that, so I don't know where you got the soundtrack, but that's an example. So like I said, school teacher, no prior game experience, and he just said, I'm going to try this, and that's what he made. So, and I don't have his specific statistics, but there's a full interview you can watch of it. He talks about kind of how they're structuring the program with this classroom. I think they're over Kuwait. And so basically they don't have homework. The homework is the quests in the game. Okay, so they have classroom instruction, but then kids go on quests during the week to reinforce the material. And so, in essence, that's what I'm trying to do with Stories of the Bible in Minecraft. So we're trying to take the same concept. Let's see. So here's a picture of our Innovation Center. So we've converted our living room into a games design studio. And so we have 8 high-end quad-core dual-screen gaming systems. They have 3D modeling software and things on. And then, kids basically register for 2-hour blocks. This is our hero wall. This is kind of a separate project, but it's sort of related. Anyway, that's in our living room. The Minecraft corner, little characters, got our mascot. This was during football season, so that's my grandma's dog. So we took him over. Anyway, he used to weigh 40 pounds, and he couldn't really hardly walk because she'd never fed him dog food. He'd only had human food. And so when we had, it was like a, sort of like a, it was kind of like a, you know, what do you call those tactical ops teams that go in and they seize the, that's kind of what we had to do with the dog. So she had dementia and, you know, it was kind of a mess. Anyway, we had to seize the dog and take him home, and he didn't eat for 2 weeks, and yeah, it was miserable. But he's doing better now, he's still alive. That was 3 years ago. Okay, so basically kids go to, I thought I'd just show you kind of how they log in and schedule the session here. Okay, so they basically could choose, I'll just pick them. But they basically can choose a, you know, project that they want to work on. So we have 2 projects, 160 of the Bible and Minecraft. The other one is we're actually designing our own product line for Bible story kits with Lego elements. They're new and used. We basically work through the Brickley network, if you're familiar with that, which is hundreds and hundreds, I think there's like over 2,000 resellers of Lego distributors. Well, they're not distributors. They're hobbyists and collectors and you know, Lego enthusiasts. And so we basically have kind of a group of people that, one of them's here in Portland, that makes custom tree leaf parts. So we're using him for some stuff. And anyway, that's kind of how we do it. So, but it's an innovation center, so we're trying to teach kids. So like with the Lego project, let's say they sign up for the Lego staging area, right here. And so we have a room that's been, it's an entire conversion of it's just a Lego awesome room. It's got, I mean, it's awesome. And so it's no longer my wife's living room. So basically kids sign up, and the idea for that one is where they actually build dry mock-ups of you know, physical models of a Bible story. So I'm giving them pre-selected stories. They can choose any one from the list. Well, let's say it's like 40 different stories. I'll give them a synopsis. So their job is come in, read the synopsis that I've basically translated from the Bible. Because we still want to kind of give them, because we're dealing with some pretty young kids. And so, you know, some of them, their attention span doesn't work too well. But basically, they go into the room, and once they pick their story, we're trying to teach them, you know, skills in problem solving and creative thinking, and sometimes kids don't like things that don't match. They want the colors to match. They want the shapes to be the same. They want the, you know, those other kinds of things. Are we okay? Are we done or? Oh, okay. I've only been going 45 minutes.
Oh, yeah, sorry. No, we have a Skype call at 6, the guys from New Zealand,
Oh, okay.
at the other location, so,
I got you.
yep, no worries.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I didn't realize.
Yep.
that was-
No, it's okay, got it set up at the last minute, so, no worries.
Yeah, that's okay. So anyway, that's kind of the scope for the Lego project. Once they have their model, they bring in the 3D software, and then we teach kids how to use the 3D modeling software to render.
That's till 6, don't you?
It's only 5 o'clock.
The laptop time is off.
Oh, the laptop time is on?
Yeah.
It's 5 p.m. right
So I've been trying to track down Tim's computer.
5:02, I think.
Oh, and their time's off in the other room as well too, because it says 6 in the other place.
It's 5:04.
Okay,
He's
we're
on
fine. You're good.
Idaho time on his laptop.
Ah,
Yes.
no worries.
Okay. Okay, so anyway, once they move into the digital designer stage, we have some different tools. You know, there's L-Draw, there's I think 3 different other CAD tools essentially. And so they render that in the software. And then once they have that, then we produce the build instructions, the parts list to order, and then the kids are part of this process. They're actually connecting with people that sell the parts. So they're kind of learning truly an end-to-end development cycle, you know, for manufacturing, for anyway, so that's kind of what we try to do, is incorporate concepts that would prepare kids to pursue a career in the STEM-D subjects, which are science, technology, engineering, math, and design. Anyway, so for the Minecraft project, which is what I was going to show you because I didn't bring any samples with me on my Lego story kits, but let me pull that up here. Okay, yeah, so they can sign up for 2 different skill levels. Novice would be, a lot of the kids, they've never played on a computer, on a desktop, either a Mac or a PC. They've only played on tablets. Really. So when we get kids that they're like, what? They don't even know what a mouse is. It's amazing. And so, but it probably takes them, I'd say, less than 120 seconds. And they're blazing a trail. They're using. Has anybody ever used MC Edit? Anybody use MC editors? Okay, we got a few back there. So that basically is a world editor for Minecraft. It's, you can change the in-game elements. You can change. Let's say I create and I'll show it to you. Let's say I create something in stone. And I want to change it to grass. And you can use that tool to just whoosh, done. Click of a mouse. There's some other editor tools. We're not really using those just because they're not very intuitive for the younger ages. But anyway, if they're on the novice, then they're building things that are pretty straightforward. Nazareth, maybe sections of Jerusalem, basically just villages and houses. And if they're on the expert side, and these are kids that they know recipes like they're like chefs, they're like master chefs. That's what we call them, is master chefs. And so they're doing colosseums, pyramids, they're doing all kinds of really elaborate structures. And then I did want to show you this. I know you probably can't see the details. These are our program guides we give parents so that they can kind of see, here's our program goals and what they're learning and different things like that. But I really wish I had my mouse pointer. But maybe I could use, I'm using a tablet, so it's a little cumbersome without my mouse here. Let's see if I can get my laser pointer. So, so we're teaching them, we're bringing in, and I've been to Israel, and so I've kind of been working towards this project for many years, probably around 8 years or so. So I have this whole collection of, archaeology, schematics, and anyway, we're trying to create it as realistic as we can make it within the constraints of the game. But anyway, so there's basically 3 phases. Construction phase, which is we're almost done with this. And so we're taking, we're working on the terrain. I'll show you some of the structures the kids have made. The quest design is really kind of the substance of the whole of this entire project. Without the quest, it's just sort of free-form exploring, which is not what we're trying to do. Because then people aren't going to do it. It's not going to be a long-term encounter. But if it's tied to a mission or a quest or that's the purpose part of it. So you got to have the quest design. It's got to be really thoughtful in the way that it's designed. And so that's kind of a separate subject that we're not really going to get into. But and then the third phase is after we've designed the quest and all the different in-game encounters. That's actually where we start to take it outwardly, where we're engaging churches around the world. And so I don't know, you may not be aware, but we're actually looking to target closed access countries with our project. And that's actually one of the things that got us onto Minecraft is right now Syria, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, North Korea, and China. Those are 6 countries today that openly persecute Christians. All 6 of them play Minecraft. And so our goal is to, if we can get it done soon, is we want to begin to infiltrate those countries to kind of prototype games as a missional tool, not only for supporting underground Christians, but as an evangelistic tool that they can use to share the gospel where they live. So we're pretty excited about that. We have a lot of interest on a national scale about that side of it. Obviously, it's there's some risk, and so we're trying to work through all the different legal and technical challenges with it, but that kind of gives you at least the scope of where we're trying to go with the project. And then again, like I said, the region of our world that we're creating, and there's some technical challenges that we're running into right now, but we're basically trying to capture that left map. So if you ever play Minecraft, it's, you don't have massive worlds. Now there is a guy, it's actually a few guys who made, they took a topo map of the Earth and they generated it in Minecraft. But the scale of it is like 1% of what we're trying to do. So it doesn't really, otherwise we just take a section of theirs and scale it out, which we tried, but it didn't work. And so, anyway, yeah, in their version, the Sea of Galilee is like 20 blocks long, which is, the equivalent of 60 feet. That's not going to work because we're trying to support thousands of people concurrently. And so, imagine a church in Brazil connected to, they're studying, Mark chapter 5, where Jesus heals the demon-possessed man. And so they're meeting with, maybe a youth group or young adult group or whatever, and they're studying, Jesus sails across the Sea of Galilee with his disciples. He gets out of the boat, the demon-possessed man rushes down, he heals the demon-possessed man, and eventually there's, the pigs, that he casts the demon into the pigs, and the pigs, go into the sea, right? That's the passage, okay? Mark chapter 5. So maybe what we would be doing is, there might be one group that's doing that. There's another group that's on the northern part of Capernaum, of the Sea of Galilee, and they're studying something else, but you might have, several hundred people, churches that are connected simultaneously, but they're all doing something different, and there's enough space in the game, virtually speaking, where they can, kind of do their own thing without getting disrupted or running into other players. So, anyway, that's kind of what we're doing. So we're taking the NASA satellite images, trying to convert those in. Just to render one attempt, it takes about 5 hours, at least with our computers. Like I said, we have quad core, they're 16 gig of RAM. They're as good as we can afford it at the moment. But anyway, I think I already talked about the Lego project there. So, oh no, I didn't. This is something. So with the Lego project, I was talking about the staging room. So the kids actually score themselves, right? They come up with their physical model, and they actually fill out a score sheet of their own work. And so these are the 5 areas that we're trying to teach kids how to think objectively. And so in an innovation lab, there's lots of interaction and collaboration that goes on. And frankly, not a lot of ideas get validated to pursue. But we're trying to teach kids the skills, at an early age, so they don't spend 21 years of their career trying to build up those competencies. But we do think that there's some value in how to do it. So they work on story essence. How closely does it represent the biblical narrative? The story relevance is more to do with like market, if I can use this word, the market familiarity of the story. Let's say you have the story of Noah's Ark, that has global recognition. People don't even have to know what the story says. They know what Noah's Ark is. As compared to, say, maybe the journeys of Paul. They're probably not really going to, So we're trying to, give them, now, there's not a right or wrong answer. We just want them to think that way. We want them to practice those skills of scoring, trying to be objective, learning those skills and how to do it. Obviously, the fun factor, the skill level is just, easy, difficult, whatever. The design integrity is more to do with, probably more on the engineering side. So we're working on a Garden of Eden set. It's a series of building kits that represent the Garden of Eden. And so one of them is the Tree of Life. Another one is the Tree of Knowledge of Good and Evil. They're separate story kits. But and then there's some other ones that we have, some accessories that they can build. So some of the kids have been building trees. Well, some of the trees, they look great, but they're not structurally stable, so they'll tip over. And so we're trying to teach them those engineering concepts, and that it's okay to try something and maybe it doesn't work that first time. And so, it's just really interesting to get feedback from kids, and I'm not afraid to explore, but boy, they're very fragile, when it comes to, getting their idea forward. And so we want to try to instill that practice of, that it's okay that, it might take a few times, and here's another way to try it, and have you thought about this? And so those are real high value skills that from a career perspective can really position them towards a thriving career in whatever, avenue they pursue. Okay. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this without the mouse here, but we'll try it. I think that's it. Okay, so we're actually getting close to. We're probably going to get down to the road here, so. But I'll show you some of the structures the kids have built so far. Does he have a USB mouse on? Yeah. Can I borrow? Something happened with the video. Yeah, see. Thanks. Okay, so my gamer tag is MindMeld. You gotta have a gamer tag in Minecraft. And it's got to be cool that the kids don't make fun of. Otherwise, you won't live it down. So I literally spent weeks trying to come up with that. And, so far, I've been okay. They make fun of the way I play. But. Okay, so. This is, we don't have the terrain map, okay, so this is just structures. We're still working on getting everything over to the final world. But what I was going to show you though is, this is Herod's temple on the southern wall, and this is to scale. It would have been 90 feet tall. Has anybody ever been to Israel? Nobody's been to Israel? Let me see if I have a picture. So the Rome sieged Jerusalem in AD 70. If you've ever read the history, the War of AD 70 is that's a fairly well documented event. But one of the things that I thought I had some pictures in here, so let me see if I can find some. Okay, here's one. This is actually kind of cool. Okay, this is, let me maximize this. So this would be the southwest corner of Herod's temple. Okay, so you got the Mount of Olives. Whoops. Thanks for your patience on the presentation tools here. Okay, so we got the Mount of Olives over here, right? So Garden Gethsemane is kind of back up in here. We're actually looking northeast from this corner. Okay, so anyway, this corner wall would have been right around 90 feet tall. Okay, so that's what we've created in the game. Is we've taken this picture and where's my back to game. This is basically kind of back up here so you can see it. So that's kind of what we're trying to recreate. So we have the steps. We still have to make the double gate, the triple gate, and you can read, you'll read those in the New Testament. The book of Acts has references to those areas. Anyway, that kind of gives you at least some sort of context. Here's an artist rendering of what Jerusalem might have looked like in the time of Jesus. I keep turning off my pointer. Sorry about that. And so over here you can see it's sort of a half Colosseum. But basically the city would have been, the wealthy people would have lived up here on the northern end. Okay, it's on a mountain. King Herod, basically, he literally moved. He raised the mountain to build it up higher. Okay, and so he basically brought in. It's a mystery on how he was able to achieve some of the design feats as far as the architectural elements. And I'll show you a couple pictures of some of the rocks, and maybe you've seen them on the History Channel or whatever. But basically, the wealthy people lived up on the north side because it was uphill. Guess what flowed downhill? All the waste, all the human waste. So all the poor people, the prostitutes, everything was kind of down on this side. Now this valley that kind of gets cut off. Anybody know what that valley is called? The Valley of Hinnom, which is translated as the Valley of Fire. Now Jesus spoke about hell, and he used the word Hinnom. Now, I believe that there's a literal hell, but I'm bringing that up because the context of it, symbolically, culturally, and spiritually, there's a lot of deep richness in the words that Jesus was describing. Now, if you haven't seen this picture, and you've never seen this picture before until now, and I wouldn't have shared that story with you, it probably wouldn't really have much of an impact. You'd read that verse every time, and you'd never think twice about it. But when you can see it, and you can maybe even go there in the game, now we have a faith encounter with kids that changes the gospel story. And that's really why we're doing this project. Is we're trying to immerse kids in the biblical narrative where it's as first person as we can get other than going back in time and physically going there. So anyway, the Garden of Gethsemane is kind of up in here. And now this picture doesn't have, it's actually got some missing historical elements. The gates aren't positioned right, but anyway, it's kind of cool seeing that. And this is Jerusalem today. So you have the mosque, which is the Dome of the Rock, right? So the Muslims control this entire platform, okay? This big, huge square, the flat part. Now there's another mosque right over here. It's out of the picture, but so we're looking at the southwestern corner, okay? Mount of Olives is over here. Garden of Gethsemane is kind of off the screen, but it's further up that way. Here's the Valley of Hinnom down here. Again, it's off the picture, but anyway, that's Jerusalem today. Oops. There's the corner. That's for a different. I don't know why that's not there. Here's another artist rendering. It's probably pretty accurate of what it'll look like. This is Robinson's Archway, which would have been a main access point into the Temple Mount. Jesus would have walked on there frequently. This is that same corner today. I took this picture at 7 in the morning. It's very rare that there aren't people out and that it's a clear sky like that, but it just worked out perfectly. So anyway, these stones are massive. It doesn't look very big, but they are huge. You can kind of see there's a discoloration that occurs right there, and that's because this section is all rebuilt from the Crusades, and this section is rebuilt from some other era. This part here is original. That's all Herod's wall. He built that. Now one of these stones, I think I have a picture here. Yeah, this one here. So one of these here, I think it's this one. It's, if I remember right, I think it's about, well, it's 50 ton. It's about, oh man, I can't remember. It's 5 to 6 feet thick in terms of the width, and it's about 32 feet long. Now these rocks were, it's limestone, which is flammable. That's why, if you read about the War of AD 70, it says Jerusalem was set on fire. That's because they literally set the city on fire. So anyway, Herod was just, he was an architectural genius. The guy could, he could make, you know, there's another one, I don't have pictures of it, it's Masada, Mount Masada, and it's kind of out by the Dead Sea, and you know, he created this oasis of, you know, royal oasis with no water, but they had these cisterns that would capture water from the flash floods. And they were able to survive up there for 2-3 years. Anyway, let's see what else we got here. So this is underneath the Western Wall, or if you've heard of the Wailing Wall. They call it the Western Wall now because of the generational, what's the word? It's a rebranding for Jewish culture. And so the younger generation, they don't, why do they want to go to the Weepy Wall? So they started to change the language that they use in Jerusalem, you know, Jews. So they call it the Western Wall. Anyway, this block here is about 400 tons. And it's a mystery. This has been on the History Channel I don't know how many times. As far as how Herod actually got it in there, there's no, they've done all kinds of, we call it DNA testing, what do they call it? Carbon testing, you know, trying to figure out, did they put it on wooden blocks and then, you know, burn them, and then it falls in place. They can't find any kind of trace of anything with fire, so, or wood. And so, yeah, no one's been able to explain how he was able to get this mounted up on that. But each of the bricks are offset by about 2 inches. And so as you go up, and so that's to keep it from shifting, tipping over. And but you think about the tools that they had, the ability for, you know, measurement tools and metrics, and just how he was able to envision such an amazing structure. It's pretty awesome. So this truck, it's the largest dump truck in the world. It only weighs 350 tons. So that stone is 100 tons more than the weight of this truck.
Could that truck carry that? brick?
No, it would crush it. So anyway, let me show you, let me go back to my world here because I forgot to show you some of these. So the kids, you know, they can work on this, and so I'm basically giving them schematics and building plans, everything. And so depending on their skill level, they're assigned to a project team, right? Novice or advanced, and so let me turn around here. And like I said, we don't have all of the world built, but not in this one. It's on our server. I just didn't have a way to bring it at the moment, so I just stuck this on here. Give me just a second here. I'll fly over to the city. So Herod's temple would have been 1,000 feet wide and roughly 1,800 feet long. So just to give you kind of a, you know, it's over here somewhere. Maybe it's over this way. Sorry. I don't have my portal set up yet. And we're about ready to wrap up here. So. Any questions while I'm kind of flying over to the... No questions?
You probably mentioned earlier, would this be like freely available, or are you going to package it as a product or free download?
Our goal is to make the world accessible for free. Now, we might create levels that are subscription based. It just depends on our funding source. You know, we're positioned as a nonprofit ministry, And like I said, once we're done with this project, we're on to the next one. So the goal is for this to become our business. Now the Lego Story Kits is something that we're going to use as a revenue source to fund the Innovation Center. And then one of the other things with that is, oh, this thing's still flying. Ah,
That's the Coliseum.
that's what happens when you use a tablet. Okay, so this is the city of Jerusalem. And so you can kind of see, like I said, kids built this. I didn't build this. It's done by kids, which is pretty awesome. But you can see I've given them some building guidelines, and then I let them basically freeform. So as long as they stay within the parameters, I don't care how they build it or what elements they use, but there's just a few guidelines, and then we have them mix it up. And so let's see, we'll take a look here. Let's see. So they got the mat on the floor. And we got some logistical questions about where's the table, which they wouldn't really have tables, but this would have been a wealthy person's house since it's a double story like this. And then the roof with the inset, right? Paul had his dream in Acts. It was on the roof of his house. A lot of kids don't know that, but now they do because they can see it and they can go there and they can take a nap. So anyway, this is a Coliseum, like several of the kids have been building, and so we're still working on the outside of it, but this at least gives you a sense of kind of how we're trying to depict these. And so if you go and basically the Colosseums would have stone, probably about this tall, stone pillars, and then they have a big iron ring on them, and that's where they would tie the prisoners up, and then they would release them. If you've ever seen Gladiator, that's pretty accurate. The lines would actually come out of the center of the ring, and so I got to go to one of the Colosseums there in Israel, and it's there. You can still see blood stain that's embedded into the stone just from hundreds of killings, right, of prisoners, and probably a lot of them from the time of Nero when he murdered Christians. But anyway, they come out of the stone, and we don't have it in the grounds. So the kids were wanting to do like a little caged area behind the Colosseum. So that's what they're working on, is they're making some gates that it's like a so they're doing some cool stuff with that. But anyway, it's pretty interesting. Let's see, oh yeah, here's the pyramid. I'll show you that real quick.
So hopefully you need help.
Well, so right now, like I said, I think our pilot goes to the end of August. And so, like I said, we have about 50 kids roughly. I mean, I've had churches from all over the country contact me. They want to participate, which is awesome. I really think that we're on to something with this in terms of not just getting kids engaged, but I think adults too. But I think people, they capture the missional vision of what we're trying to do. And so, I think it's something that I'd love to partner with the Cgdc, Christian Community. And so, that might be something that by next year, maybe we'll have some things where we can actually have this conference group, using it as a way to, help support what we're trying to do as a conference body, right? So I don't know, we'll have to be in touch and collaborate on it. Here's one of the pyramids, and they've been. So this is a historically accurate pyramid. I don't know what you call it. It's got all of the elements of the pyramid in the time of pharaohs, and so I guess I have to so it's pretty elaborate. These kids have really been thoughtful and thorough, and making sure that they're doing it the right way, which is awesome. And like I said, this is just the construction phase. So the second phase is we'll actually be creating the in-game experiences and the quests. Pretty awesome stuff.
Can you have that set up in Expo so folks can try it out?
Oh, sure.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Be praying for this ministry. This is cool. Give them a round of applause.